Welcome, Adriana. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
I love this show. I adore you, and I'm ready to rock and roll. How's that for pep?
That's awesome. I needed
Early in
it,
the
and I
morning.
love it. Here, hold
I'm
up.
all yours, baby.
Hold up for Union Beach again, and show people who are watching on YouTube. Anyway, let's see this beautiful cover. Okay, so Reunion Beach. This project really, honestly, like moved me so deeply. The fact that well, you know what? Why don't you explain the project to listeners, and then I'll weigh in on all my thoughts.
There was once upon a time, she's been gone now over a year, Dorothea Benton Frank, known to everybody as Dottie. And she was a huge bestseller. Her last book, Queen Bee, rocketed to the top. It got to number 2, which was huge. And you know how the bestseller lists work. It could, it's the luck of the draw kind of sometimes. But she was a force of nature, elegant, funny, bawdy, loved her husband, loved her kids, loved her new grandson, and her daughter, Victoria, who is included in here. She is an author also, Victoria Benton Frank, wrote the most beautiful love letter to her mom in here. Look, it took us by surprise. She was young. That was the first thing you need to know, Zibby, is that she was too young to go, which I am fascinated by people who live like they know. Now, Dottie didn't think she was going to die, and she didn't know she was going to die, and she got a bad illness very quickly. But I love when women live like they don't have any time to waste. Like the time wasted is the worst thing, which is why, of course, I think what you're doing is so extraordinary, because we don't have time. We must write our books. We must put, even while we're raising kids, and it's part of the pact we have to make with ourselves and one another. And Dottie was front and center on that. She was very encouraging of other writers. I never laughed so hard in my life when I met her, when we would do events together. There's a great event down in Charleston that I want to get you to called the Courier Book and Author Luncheon, which Robbie Scott hosts, and then Dottie co-hosted. And with Dottie gone, now she asked me to co-host it, which I'm very proud to do. I can't fill her shoes. I can't be Dottie, but we'll do the best we can and do it in her memory. So this book was written by friends of hers. Also, her editor, Carrie Farron, approached different authors to be a part of it. So of course we have the great Ellen Hildebrand. And I wrote about, when Dottie passed away, I did an op-ed about her in my favorite newspaper, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, out of Richmond, Virginia, and which got incredible response because Dottie was so beloved. Charleston, South Carolina is what you need to know. She was born and raised there. So you got Ellen Hildebrand, you have Patty Callahan, and she used to be Patty Callahan Henry. She's now Patty Callahan. Mary Alice Monroe, and I just want to tell you some more of the folks involved because it's pretty incredible. They really, I have to give it to Carrie. She really gathered the best of the best. Cassandra King Conroy, that's Pat Conroy's widow, but she is Cassandra King, a great novelist in her own right. Mary Norris, Jacqueline Bouvier-Lee, Gervase Haggerty, Marjorie Wentworth, and Natalie Dupree. Also buttoned with her son and daughter's essays and something from her husband, Peter.
Well, the book, I didn't know Dottie, and I was hoping to get to know her. I had just been pitched Queen Bee for my podcast, and before anything could happen, like, it was still on my shelf, and I was like, what? That's the author I was going to interview. So I didn't know her personally. I'm sad not to have gotten a chance to meet her. However, reading this book, I feel like I would recognize her if she passed me on the street right now. Like, I feel like I would know her. I know her deeply. I feel like you guys collectively got to, you painted a picture of a complete person in a way that you can only really get if you sit in on someone's memorial service, right? Which I always like, I don't know. I mean, that sounds creepy to say. I love going to memorial services, but there's
I'm
something
a
about,
funeral person too.
oh,
I can't believe you're I love them too. I love memorials. Well, do you feel cleansed after them? I feel renewed.
I literally at the beginning, my husband, when we were still dating, he's like, how many of these do you go to a year? Because I'm like, wait, the mom of this girl I went to nursery school died and I haven't seen her since like 1980 something, but like I remember her, so we're gonna go. And he's like, okay. But then you hear it's all, I mean, it's sort of back to storytelling, right? It's like you hear the story of someone's life. Yes, I love,
So
I mean,
true. That's so
I
true. It comes
anyway,
back to like, how do you?
and this story was just a memorial service in a book and was such a tribute to her. And I loved, by the way, your essay in it. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. First of all, what you said earlier about her book being #2 on the bestseller list, which was like part of the joke in the essay
Mhm.
itself, where you recreate Pat Conroy meeting Dottie in heaven with like I mean, it's so funny. Tell me about like so they said write an essay. How did you come up with that format to do it as this like, scene
Well,
from heaven out of one of those, 1980s heaven type movies, Heaven Can Wait and all those.
first you got to hear the voices. So Pat Conroy's voice is very clear to me. I never met Pat, spoke with Pat. Pat blurbed, endorsed. I hate that word, blurbed. Endorsed our family cookbook because I'm raised in Appalachia, so he's Southern, and so that all folded in. So Pat came to me in a wave, and I know his wife, and I love her. And I was at an event with her. I want to get you on the road with us because that's when the rubber hits the road, when you start doing these luncheons and things, because they're really, I mean, you meet people and you have a ball. So met Cassandra in Florida, and then Julia Reed. Do you know Julia Reed?
Only
Okay,
no.
Julia Reed, yeah, probably by reputation, but she's in the essay as well because she passed away while I was writing it.
Oh,
So I thought they are a trio. They're all Southern. They are in different genres, so to speak. And Julia Reed's voice is so clear to me because I went to lunch with her several times. I endorsed one of her books, and I said, this is a movie, and so we started having lunches with movie people, which was really great. So Julia Reed was at Vogue for many years. She did a lot of television. She was a great writer and interviewer and journalist of the great people of the century. Easiest way I can say it. And very elegant and very funny. They all share humor. So when I went to write it, I'm a dramatist. That's how I started. I'm a playwright, and I write. I adapt my stuff or anyone else's for movies and film and television. So I said, why don't I write kind of almost a play? And then the postcard idea came to me because I don't know if you're like this, but I tuck stuff. I see all your beautiful books. I put things in my book, so when I go to get it again, there's a surprise in there for me. It could be my great grandmother's Christmas card. It could be a picture of a friend. It could be a letter I received. I hate to throw out letters, but as you know, and I think you're from a pretty big family, it's like really gets to be how many confirmation cards am I going to keep? So I tuck them in books. So that became the idea, and that's how I came up with Postcards from Heaven. So those little things you find when you're in your house, like this was my mom's. This is the prayer to St. Francis. I keep it on my desk. So that reminds me of my mom. Well, that's the impetus of it. So those little things you find will remind you of Dottie. And look, you see that big diamond back there? I don't even want to turn to get it. But
yes.
okay, when I met her at Books Expo, and we can't remember the year, we always just pretended like we knew each other for 100 years because that's what it felt like. She'd send me videos of people. I wore the lipstick that she was wearing when on her last tour. She'd pick a lipstick, and this was Brazenberry 903 because when you're on a book tour, sometimes you leave your lipstick in the hotel room, which I've done many times. So I had to go get it. And so she wanted this color. Well, she made ladies all over America. She bought 12 and gave them away. And this color doesn't work on everybody. For some people, it looks terrible, right? I said, Dottie, these girls don't look good in this color. She says, they think they do.
Now I want to
That's
try
her.
it.
So she sent me that because I said to her when I met her, she was wearing a giant diamond ring from her beloved husband, Peter. She always bragged about him listening. She said, we still get it on, and he's got a full head of hair. And I just was like, oh, are you kidding me?
That's so funny you
But
say
we
that.
like people who get it on. We like married people who get it on. Okay, so
that came through, by the way, in the book. I was like, okay, yeah, that totally came through. Both of their discussions on like their passionate relationship. And, I was like, I feel like I can read between the lines here. What's going on?
Well, someday you'll talk to Victoria Benton Frank and she will tell you. I mean, they were not shy about saying it. And she said, it was up to her a lot of the time because her husband's tired, she's tired, whatever. So that's just a little tip from Dottie from heaven. She's over my shoulder. But I loved her diamond. And it was the biggest thing I ever saw. And it kind of blinded me. And I said, give me that diamond. And she sent me the next day FedEx. This lumpy FedEx came. By the way, she never used regular mail, always FedEx. Dottie, it's expensive. I don't care. I know you're going to get it the next day. She sent me that big diamond paperweight.
I love that.
That's Dottie.
Oh my gosh. I love the idea that they also were sitting around. Wait, first of all, I'm going to start putting stuff in my books now because that's a genius idea. And I don't do that. And I wish I did. All I find when I look back is like notes that I take sometimes or like.
Well, my notes are in there too. Keep doing your notes. That's a good thing. That's you're a real bibliophile when you do that. But I'm telling you, when you find just a sweet secret thing, in a book and you can't really see it, but anyway, you get a note. Fan letters, a fan letter, somebody writing to you say they love your show, they love, moms don't have time to, and you'll in 10 years you'll look at it and go, oh my gosh, it makes you feel good.
I have a file.
It talks to you. Your books speak to you in a certain way when you do this.
I love that. I feel like the books speak to, I don't know. I feel like just scanning all the books, everything like brings up all the characters. Like, it's like I'm surrounded by like people. That sounds so ridiculous.
Zibby, do you find when you say, oh, I've got to like I got to find I'm going to throw somebody out here, Toni Morrison. Do you know right where she is?
I used to, but then I redid all this in February. Right after I had COVID, I like took every book in this room and like I felt like I had to touch every book after getting out of bed after 9 days. And then I did this whole thing to make it look rainbow. So now I no longer know exactly, but I did for years. I knew everything. So now I'm like getting to know it again. But I know basically.
You know basically where stuff is. Well, of course, when you adjust to the new system, but somebody will say to me, and I'll be talking to somebody and go, hang on, I know where that book is. The other day I had to find Harriet the Spy and I knew right where it was, even though I don't want to tell you how many books are here. It's like the public library.
I want to see it. I'm going to come.
Yeah, you're coming over.
I'm
like doing I'm going to do an actual library room because here's what's happened. I collect so many books that I found treasures, really, like signed books, when Tommy DePaolo died, I had him signed. My mother used to buy Strega Nona for all her grandchildren.
I love that book.
Yeah, she loved that too. So, and she wrote in it to my daughter. And so then I have him separate signed and her. It's that stuff. I'll show you everything.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I can't wait. Wait, I want to say one more thing about your story. And then I want to hear more about how you even got to where you are today and like, all of that. The idea that they were sitting around talking about their deaths, like this is the one thing that you cannot ever commiserate and share with other people about. Did you have an easy death? Did you have a hard death? Was yours fast? Was yours slow? Mine was kind of fast. Oh, mine was slow. Like, it's the only thing that we can't be like, you can only have like maybe a glimmer, like, oh, this is it, huh? Like, because I feel like I've had those glimmers many times and then like, the plane stabilized or, everything was fine or whatever. But there's only that second. Anyway, I just thought the idea that like you could sit, it would be so nice. It would just be so nice if you could all reunite in that way. So anyway, I love that.
I love the reuniting too, but when Dottie was dying, I mean, here's the story. I get a text from her. Now, this social media stuff. I'm so, in terms of like Instagram was new to it a year ago. I'm still pretty new to it. Okay. Facebook I'm a little bit better with because I do Facebook Live, but even there, Zibby, I have no idea. Okay. I'm if I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you. That's how I look at it. Right. So I get this text from Dottie and says, "Are you here?" So I text her back. I say, "Yeah." She said, "Well, you're in Italy, right?" Now I said to her, "No." Now this is not the last summer, but the summer before. Okay. So say to her, Dottie, that's a virtual tour that I did. Like I go to Italy and I to see my family, and I take movies and things, and then we made it into a story, but I wasn't there. I was here. She said, I'm in the hospital. Where? And I went into the whole thing. So we share an agent, Suzanne Gluck from William Morris Endeavor. I always like to say that because she, of course, can use it. Really needs me to like promote her. Anyway, so I say, okay, Dottie, I'm coming. So I got dressed and I'm in the cab and I get a call from my agent, Suzanne, who's also my friend, and says, don't come. She's having a problem. And I said, all right. I turned around and came home. I started texting Victoria. Victoria was overwhelmed. Victoria was very pregnant. You're going to love her. She's hilarious and she's brilliant. So I said, okay, I'll come another day. And this really bothers me, I got to tell you, still to this day, because there was a second time I said, I'm going, and I just got dressed and I got there and the same thing happened. I got a call, don't come. But then when Dottie went through her journey to the other side, everything fell into place and made sense. She was with her daughter. She was with her husband. She was with her son and her daughter-in-law. She was with the people she wanted to be with. So I would just sit here and pray to her and just go, hey, Dottie, listen, I'm here, whatever you need. Oh. So yeah, it was rough. That was rough. But she was not about death. She was about living. And that's why I thought to put her in a bar with Pat Conroy. Because all we ever did was talk, like make jokes about, cocktails and things like that. Wherever, when you're on a book tour, you can't get a drink. That's really rich when you can't have a glass of wine and you're like, I've got pink, I've got red. She would tell you all these great, crazy stories. So, it was a highly charged time, but her transition, but Victoria will tell you it was also very peaceful. And she finally went, oh, okay, all right, this is what this is going to be. She was a person of faith. She had a deep faith. She would never call herself religious, I don't think, spiritual, but she was religious too, I believe.
Wow. Well, she was lucky to call you a friend, and all of you guys did a beautiful job. Truly, it was amazing. I think everybody deserves a book like this.
Yeah, you do. You said that, and I love that you think that. Isn't this a great idea, though?
Yes,
for everyone to do it.
Everyone should do this, because you can't always go to people's memorial services, and it's not like people record them so you can watch them usually. But then you miss getting to know that person. I mean, how hard would it be? Just everybody should have before you die, or like everybody today should just email like the 6 to 8 people they want to have essays written by and say, okay,
right now.
Yeah, get ready. When I die, you're one of my essay writers. I'll never be able to proof it, but you could send it ahead of time if you want.
And be aspirational. Pick Zadie Smith. See if she'll write it.
Yeah.
You gotta pick people
Well, okay, back to you for 2 seconds. How did you become who you are today? Like, where did you get your start with professionally? Let's just go there. How did you start being a writer and getting into all the different content areas, film and everything you do? It's amazing.
Well,
how did you start, and how did it grow?
First of all, I grew up in a place that I call them the best people in the world, the Appalachian people in the coal mining region of Virginia, in the southwest corner. It's called far southwest Virginia. And it borders Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, West Virginia, Virginia. That's your little hub there. Did I say Tennessee? That's also in there. So we lived at, and my dad was in, you'll appreciate this, the schmata business. His parents, we were all on that side of the family. Interesting, it's all sartorial, garment manufacturers. And my grandmother on the other side was a seamstress, and my grandfather was a shoemaker. Everybody Italian immigrants, okay? So I'm completely Italian. How do you say that? I don't know. Both sides of Stanley Tucci says I love him. Okay, so my dad gets this during the late 60s. They had this thing called the War on Poverty program, and Appalachia was from southern New York all the way down to Georgia. That it still is. I mean, what am I saying? The Appalachian Trail. And if you study American history, you know that every important art form and tech and emanated from Appalachia on some level, Usually, if we're talking about music, it's the African American that became the bluegrass, that became soul, that became, as we know, okay, rock and roll. All came out of there. And yet the Appalachian people are very maligned. We're called hillbillies, hilljacks, you get the names. And as Italian Americans and Roman Catholics that lived there, there weren't a lot of Catholics. There was one Jewish family. We did Seder every year together during Passover. It was fantastic. So it was that kind of an upbringing, okay? I would call it not only diverse, sort of enchanted and interesting and different, okay? So it starts there. They were very arty in my town, Big Stone Gap. They had an outdoor drama, which I never was in, but like idolized it. But they had a town musical, and I worked on the crew, and I'd be in the chorus, and actually got interested in that because they would cast my brother. I have a younger brother, Carlo, who could sing. And so that kind of got me into the theater, but I liked the director. And I would watch, they'd get like these fancy directors, like a guy with a pipe. Where'd he come from? And he'd come in and he'd direct like the local women, right? And men. And so they did the canon, the Rodgers and Hammerstein canon. And the star in every show was Barbara Polly, who was just a great lady. And she starred in the outdoor drama. It's a small town. So that led me to playwriting. I began as a poet, which it might be the worst career there is, except now with Amanda Gorman, it's better. I mean, the word's spreading, but I knew of the great poets like Rita Dove and Nikki Giovanni and, the Southern or Midwestern. I was big fans of theirs. So I would write poetry, and the poetry wasn't great, but when I got to St. Mary's, I was determined to be a theater major because I knew I wanted to direct. And then you have to study all the disciplines. And it had a great co-department with Notre Dame. It was a terrific department. And I got to write and direct on the main stage, like the professionals. But I became a professional like at 19. So I could write a play. So then I won a prize and I went, okay, I can go to New York and make this work. And when I got to New York, I started a comedy troupe, and we were called the Outcasts Girls. And we were on the circuit for 7 years. And I was broke. Zibby, I was so broke. And, you don't even know anybody you can borrow money from. I was an office temp at Merrill Lynch, which I was very bad at, but I always said I was worth every penny of that $6 an hour. I worked in a movie theater, and I got fired from there because I kept breaking the letters. Do you remember Cinema Village over at that was my theater.
Yes.
And a friend of mine said, because I was having trouble finding a nice boyfriend. And he said, if you sold tickets over there, you're well lit under glass. And I couldn't make change. Oh, it was a disaster. And then I kept breaking the letters. And the owner of the theater said to me, those letters are more expensive than what you're paying. You have to go. You had to use nobody knew how to do. I never knew that they put it on a stick and stuck it up there and you'd have to slide it in. It was like an Olympic feat. Anyway. Got canned from there, but I had jobs. I was a nanny. I did all these jobs as I was writing plays and screenplays. Then I sold a screenplay in Hollywood. I had an off-Broadway production at Manhattan Theater Club starring Camille Saviola called Secrets of the Lava Lamp that got where Mel Gussow kicked my hiney, which was great. You want to get your hiney kicked by him. Then I got a job in television, and then it took off. On A Different World. Do you remember A Different World?
Yes, of course.
With Jasmine Guy and
yes.
yeah, all those guys. Love them. I still love them, and I try to cast them whenever I can. Then, I know this sounds crazy, but every 10 years, look at your life. Some people say 7, it's more biblical. I do 7, but 10, it takes me 10 to like get the job done. But I just keep reinventing and saying, what else do I want to accomplish? So once I did the playwriting and I did that, I knew I would always be those things. But then I wrote for TV, and I didn't watch TV when I was growing up. I was a reader. We didn't get good reception down in those mountains. So that led me to being really a full-time dramatist in television and film. And I wrote for A Different World, Good Sports with Farrah Fawcett and Ryan O'Neal, Bill Persky, one of my great, he's family to me. Still honorary dad, brother, everything. He's the greatest. He created Kate and Allie and That Girl. And I worked with him on a show with Jane Curtin. Then I did a special for Lifetime. You see how it worked? It just all sort of, and I'm very proud of City Kids. Do you remember City Kids? Oh,
No, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna make it. You kids need to watch it. It's still current. We did it in 1993 with the City Kids Foundation and Jim Henson. So I worked for that company, and I love them very much too. So I had all these things. I did pilots, and then I made a documentary film. And the documentary film won the Audience Award in the Hamptons and Palm Springs, which led me to, see, every 10 years, led me to this gentleman who ran the shooting gallery that had just done Sling Blade. So then I said, well, I have this idea called Big Stone Gap. And he said, well, what is it? And I told him this idea. And then I wrote the screenplay. And then my friend Suzanne, aforementioned, read it and said, you know what, this is a book. Can you write a novel? And I was like, oh, no. Well, I was at my 10-year mark, and I went, I'll try. So it took a couple years, and then I delivered it, it sold, and now we're 20 books in.
Oh my gosh.
So Zibby, this is my thing. Whatever you're doing, I'm speaking to the choir here because I could just tell by what you're doing. You know, we have a mutual dear friend, Christina Geist, you know, and I called her about you, and I said, hey, Zibby, what do you think? She loves you.
I love her too.
I said, I think what she's doing is fantastic, and I think it's important, and I think it's going to lead you to roads you never imagined for yourself. And that's what this is all about. And by the way, think about it. Every children's book you read to your kids was written by a woman. I mean, you got Mo Willems and some of our friends, Tommy Powell, but you know, think Pippi Longstocking, Heidi. Well, I consider Jane Eyre, that was on the cusp. I read it when I was 11, but those books are all, this is a great gift to women, this profession, publishing. Did I talk too much? Yes.
No, I loved it. It was amazing. You're amazing. I like adore you. And I this is like
mutual, baby.
It's just so exciting. I'm so impressed with that idea that you can constantly reinvent yourself. I mean, and as you said, yes, this has already taken me in like 1,000 directions. I never would have.
That's what I wanted to do. And you know, when I talk to authors, I say, you created the world. Learn how to direct movies, would you please? Now, listen, I take to it because I'm a dramatist. Okay, so I was destined to direct because I directed plays, and I love actors, and I know how to do that. Right? They always say to me, "How'd you get that cast?" That's not the deal. You have to create a family with those actors, and they've got to all be in the same movie. And I'm not going to tell you it hasn't been a struggle. It's a struggle, but it's going to change for our kids, which thrills me. I'll be dead and they'll be directing. That's what I want. And I say this to authors all the time. Can you do it? I want you to go home and sleep on it. If you want to, come and follow me around. Or call Steven Spielberg, say, can I follow you around? You know what? He'll say yes. But you got to learn how to do it. And people are cowed by the technical. You learn that, so the hard part is the emotions. The hard part is making that actor, empowering that beautiful actor to give what he or she has got to the story. That's the part that's important. Then you get Ray Villalobos, you just get a great cinematographer. It's a very intimate relationship, I will say that. But I put this is what, look how yellowed, look, this is sad. Look how yellowed, I have to turn the lights down. Look how, oh, it's upside down. Okay, so this has been on my desk for years also. This is from Federico Fellini. Everybody will try and scare you with technique. First freaking thing they did, because you know, you work with but producers come and go. To you, to them, you are a project that could happen or not happen. To you, I'm making this happen. So if they're not interested, after a while, you just go, hey, I don't think you're into this. You've had this project for years and you haven't done anything with it. And they'll say, well, we called people. Well, get it done. So listen, the biggest thing is Big Stone Gap, got it done. And it's a beautiful movie. Everybody will try to scare you with technique, but don't let them intimidate you. You want to tell the story like you're telling it to a friend. Think about that. You're creating a movie like I'm telling you this story, almost like a joke, how you tell a joke, right? If you're a good storyteller, you will be able to do it. But if you don't have that talent, all the technique in the world won't help you. Federico Fellini. Okay, so the point is, right? You write a book, you created a world. Now you have to figure out how to dramatize that world. And I should throw this out because I have to give her credit. was a theater major, had great professors. I moved to New York, and I threw a couple of girls that were, everybody was starting theater companies, and I would be like the person that went in and said, okay, I'll write your play for you. And there was a playwriting, there was an acting company that needed a playwright, so they picked me. And this is through my friend Becky Browder Neustadt. I met the great director, George Keithley. Now that he won Emmys for television, being a television director in the soaps in New York. But prior to that, he directed the first stuff of Tennessee Williams. This was this robust, gorgeous man. And then he went on to be the artistic director at Kansas City. And I went and did a play out there for them. So he reads my plays and he sits me down. And listen, I'm like 22 years old. I'm like a baby. And he says, you know what, you got talent, but you need help. I was like, okay. He said, I'm gonna send you to somebody. And I thought, oh God. And he said, Ruth Getz. And I went like this. Ruth Getz, wife of Augustus Getz, they created The Heiress. They wrote The Heiress together, and and then adapted the screenplay. And I knew everything about Ruth Getz, which was sort of hilarious. Okay, so he said, she'll call you. Living at a boarding house on 10th Street called Millbank House. And there's one phone on each floor. Okay, you're talking about, this is the 80s, right? You were little. I was young. Go over there. And the phone rings and it's her, and she says, I want you to come 9 a.m. sharp to such and such and such East 50-something Street for gardening lessons. So for the next 7 years, I went there. And she ripped everything I wrote apart. Oh my gosh. I learned from her. And to this day, I have friends call me, what would Ruth have said? And I said, oh, she said, she had like essential rules, which eventually I'll write because I'll die and they'll be gone. But she was so great. And I come from a family that's very loud and bombastic. And my father was very strict. So when people are very direct with me, it doesn't cow me. I kind of like have to decipher what do they want me to do. So that was that. I rambled on again, but I have to
that's okay.
I think she would like be your neighbor up there. She's now in heaven.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I could talk to you all day. Let's continue in person at some point, but thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Thank you for this ridiculously fun conversation that just like set my day off on the right path. And thank you for talking about Reunion Beach, which was amazing.
Everybody read it, get it. It's a great, I think it'd be beautiful for Mother's Day based on what Victoria wrote to her mother. But as you know, all the stories are wonderful and it's great people and you'll love it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I'll see you on my thing.
Okay, I'll see you on your thing.
Can't wait.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.